In the celestial tapestry of a natal chart, the asteroid Vesta represents the sacred flame of focus, devotion, and spiritual purity. Named after the Roman goddess of the hearth and home, Vesta signifies where we possess an innate capacity for deep concentration, what we consider sacred, and where we are willing to make sacrifices for a higher purpose. When this potent archetype of the cosmic priestess descends into the nadir of the birth chart, the fourth house, the externalized fire of devotion turns inward, illuminating the foundations of the psyche, the ancestral lineage, and the literal and emotional sanctuary of the home. Vesta in the fourth house is a profound placement that fuses the archetypes of the eternal flame with the deepest roots of human experience. It suggests that an individual's ultimate devotion is directed toward the creation of a sacred space, the healing of generational karma, and the cultivation of an unshakable internal security. The sacred hearth, redefining home as a temple. To understand Vesta in the fourth house, one must first dismantle the modern, mundane concept of home. For an individual with this natal placement, a home is rarely just a physical structure made of brick and mortar, nor is it merely a domestic space to rest between obligations. Instead, the home is envisioned, required, and treated as a living temple. The fourth house represents our private life, our emotional foundations, and our sanctuary from the chaos of the public world, the opposing 10th house. With Vesta residing here, the domestic sphere becomes the primary laboratory for spiritual devotion. These individuals possess a visceral need for their living environment to feel energetically pure, physically organized, and spiritually resonant. They are the natural caretakers of the hearth fire, ensuring that the atmosphere of their home remains untainted by the discordant energies of the outside world. This manifests practically in a variety of ways. A person with Vesta in the fourth house may obsessively clear the energy of their space using sage, sound, or intentional minimalist design. They might dedicate a specific room, corner, or altar entirely to meditation, prayer, or ritual. The act of homemaking, cooking, cleaning, decorating is not viewed as a chore, but rather as a form of active meditation. For these individuals, tending to the physical space is synonymous with tending to their own soul. If their home is in disarray, their internal psychological state rapidly follows suit. Ancestral devotion and the healing of the roots. The fourth house is also the repository of our ancestry, our family heritage, and the psychological imprints left by our upbringing. When Vesta takes up residence in this sector, the flame of devotion is frequently cast backward into the family lineage. Individuals with this placement often feel a profound, sometimes heavy, sense of responsibility toward their family of origin or their ancestral roots. They may act as the literal or figurative keepers of the family history, the ones who preserve genealogical records, maintain family traditions, or care for aging relatives. There is a sacred duty felt here, a calling to honor where they came from. However, because Vesta demands purity and is associated with the concept of sacrifice, this placement can also indicate a person who acts as the designated healer or the psychological filter for systemic family trauma. Vesta in the fourth house individuals are uniquely equipped to look directly into the subterranean shadow of their lineage, identify generational patterns of pain, dysfunction, or repression, and consciously choose to burn away those impurities. They sacrifice their own comfort to break toxic cycles, ensuring that the lineage moving forward is cleaner, lighter, and more aligned with spiritual truth. This process is rarely easy. It requires the individual to dive into the deep waters of their early childhood conditioning and systematically separate what belongs to their true self from what was merely inherited from their parents. The Vesta flame acts as a cauterizing agent, burning away false familial identities so the authentic self can emerge. The internal sanctuary, cultivating psychological autonomy. While the external home is crucial for Vesta in the fourth house, the ultimate evolution of this placement lies in the discovery of the internal hearth. Because the fourth house governs the subconscious and our deepest emotional security, Vesta here demands that the individual learn to find safety within themselves, independent of external circumstances, relationships, or geographical locations. Vesta is an archetype of self-containment. Unlike the moon, which seeks comfort through connection and emotional exchange, Vesta finds comfort through sacred isolation and self-sufficiency. Therefore, people with this placement often require significant periods of solitude within their homes to recharge their psychological batteries. They do not just enjoy being alone, they need it to maintain their mental and spiritual equilibrium. In the quiet sanctuary of their private space, away from the expectations of society, they stoke their inner fire and reconnect with their core essence. Before this internal autonomy is achieved, however, the individual may struggle with the shadow side of Vesta in the fourth house. This can manifest as an over-identification with the role of the domestic martyr. They may sacrifice their own ambitions, desires, and personal freedom to maintain harmony at home or to cater to the emotional needs of family members. Alternatively, if the home environment of their youth was chaotic or unsafe, they may develop a rigid, hyper-vigilant control over their adult living spaces, becoming phobic of any intrusion or disruption to their domestic sanctuary. The lesson of Vesta here is to realize that the sacred flame does not depend on a perfect external environment or a flawless family dynamic. The true temple is built within the architecture of the psyche. Once the individual learns to anchor their consciousness in their own internal center, they become unshakable, capable of carrying their sense of home and sanctuary wherever they go. The call to solitude versus domestic partnership. A fascinating paradox arises when Vesta, the eternal virgin, in the ancient sense of being whole unto oneself, occupies the house of family and domesticity. The fourth house naturally inclines toward creating a family, cohabitating, and building a traditional domestic life. Vesta, however, resists losing its autonomy to another person. Consequently, individuals with Vesta in the fourth house often experience a unique tension regarding cohabitation and family life. They may deeply desire a home and family, yet find the daily friction of sharing a space with partners or children to be incredibly draining to their focused energy. They require partners who understand and respect their absolute need for privacy, silence, and personal space. In some cases, individuals with this placement may choose non-traditional living arrangements, such as maintaining separate bedrooms within a shared home, living next door to a romantic partner, or choosing a life of intentional solo living. If they do have a traditional family, they will aggressively protect their right to a private sanctuary within the home, a study, a workshop, or a studio where no one else is permitted to enter without permission. For Vesta in the fourth house, boundaries within the home are not a sign of rejection, they are an act of psychological survival. Professional expression, bringing the hearth to the world. While the fourth house is primarily a private, internal sector of the chart, Vesta's intense focus can still find a powerful expression in an individual's career or public calling, often by projecting fourth house themes outward into society. People with Vesta in the fourth house may find themselves drawn to professions that involve creating, protecting, or healing spaces for others. They make exceptional interior designers, architects, feng shui consultants, and real estate professionals, treating the selection and arrangement of physical properties with a reverent, almost spiritual care. Because of their deep connection to the psyche and ancestral healing, they are also naturally gifted in fields like psychology, family counseling, trauma therapy, and genealogy. They have the ability to hold a safe, sacred space for others as they navigate their own deep emotional terrain. Alternatively, their devotion might express itself through historical preservation, archaeology, or agriculture, tending to the literal earth and preserving the foundations of human history. Whatever their chosen field, they approach their work with a quiet, intense dedication, treating their professional duties with the same respect and focus that they afford their private rituals. Conclusion: the flame that never dies. Ultimately, Vesta in the fourth house is a call to honor the sacredness of the private life. In a modern world that constantly demands outward visibility, constant connectivity, and public achievement, this placement stands as a quiet, revolutionary reminder of the value of turning inward. It asks the individual to tend to the roots rather than obsessing over the branches. By dedicating themselves to the purification of their emotional foundations, the healing of their ancestral lineage, and the creation of a genuine sanctuary both within their physical home and their own psychological depth. They ensure that their inner fire burns brightly. They become the quiet keepers of the flame, anchors of peace and psychological stability in an otherwise turbulent world. The sign in which Vesta resides in the fourth house dictates the flavor of the sacred flame and the specific energetic qualities you need to cultivate within your domestic sanctuary. Aries. The home must be a space for absolute independence, autonomy, and raw vitality. This placement creates a need for solo physical outlets within the private sphere. The internal flame is stoked through personal projects, self-reliance, and avoiding codependent family dynamics. Taurus. Sanctuary is found through the physical senses, material comfort, and absolute stability. The domestic space is treated as a literal temple of nature and beauty, requiring tactile pleasures, plants, and a slow, rhythmic pace to keep the internal fire burning steadily. Gemini. The home functions as a sacred library and intellectual hub. Devotion is expressed through writing, reading, and continuous learning within the private sphere. Mental stimulation and varied communication channels within the household are vital to keeping the psyche energized. Cancer. The most natural fit for the fourth house, this placement intensifies the urge to fiercely protect and nurture the emotional core of the family. The individual acts as the ultimate psychic sponge and caregiver, needing to learn deep emotional boundaries so they do not drown in the feelings of others. Leo. The home is an artistic sanctuary and a stage for joyful self-expression. There is a sacred duty to infuse the private life with warmth, pride, and creative play. The domestic environment often features a dramatic flair or a central space dedicated to the individual's passions. Virgo. Sacred devotion manifests as immaculate organization, cleanliness, and acts of practical service within the home. The individual finds spiritual peace through the ritualistic ordering of their physical space, analyzing family dynamics, and tending to the physical health of the household. Libra. The domestic sanctuary must be a masterpiece of peace, aesthetic harmony, and relational balance. There is a deep focus on creating an elegant, conflict-free environment. The challenge lies in ensuring that the desire for peace does not lead to superficial peacekeeping or a sacrifice of personal truth. Scorpio. The home is a private laboratory for psychological transformation, alchemy, and absolute privacy. This placement demands an intensely guarded sanctuary where secrets, ancestral shadows, and deep emotional truths can be safely exhumed and regenerated without external intrusion. Sagittarius. The home is treated as a philosophical sanctuary or a launching pad for exploration. The space may be filled with artifacts from foreign travels, spiritual texts, or a rotating door of diverse guests. Devotion here looks like maintaining a sense of freedom, optimism, and truth-seeking within the private life. Capricorn. The private sphere is treated with immense duty, structure, and respect for tradition. The individual takes on the role of the architectural and emotional backbone of the family. There is a need to build a legacy or a solid, enduring foundation, though they must guard against emotional coldness or rigidity. Aquarius. The home environment is highly unconventional, serving as a sanctuary for radical individuality, intellectual freedom, and community connection. The individual may reject traditional family structures entirely, opting for communal living, high-tech isolation, or a chosen family of like-minded exons. Pisces. The domestic sphere functions as a boundless spiritual ashram or a creative, fluid dreamscape. Boundaries within the home are highly permeable, making the individual incredibly sensitive to environmental energies. Solitude, artistic escapism, and spiritual practices are mandatory to avoid psychic exhaustion. When transiting Vesta moves through your natal fourth house, the sacred laser beam of focus, purification, and devotion turns directly toward your psychological roots, your family dynamics, and your physical living space. This is a period of deep emotional consolidation. It asks you to temporarily step back from public ambitions, the 10th house, and focus your energy on tending to your internal hearth and sanctuary. A fourth house Vesta transit is a quiet, foundational cycle that prioritizes inner peace, domestic sanctity, and ancestral clearing over external accolades. Redefining the sanctuary, domestic purification. During this transit, you will likely feel a powerful, instinctual urge to clear, organize, and consecrate your physical home. Vesta cannot tolerate energetic clutter, and because the fourth house rules your living space, any stagnation in your environment will begin to feel psychologically oppressive. This often manifests as a desire to deeply clean, declutter, or minimalist out your home. You might find yourself clearing out old, hoarded items that carry stagnant emotional memories. Creating a specific area in your home, such as a meditation corner, an altar, or a private study, dedicated entirely to solitude and spiritual practice. Using energetic clearing methods, like sound or sage, to purify the atmosphere of your space. For the duration of this transit, your home is not just a place to sleep, it is a temple. If your living situation is chaotic, you will feel a sacred duty to fix it, even if it requires making sacrifices to secure a peaceful environment. Emotional self-containment and the need for solitude. The fourth house is the most private, subterranean quadrant of the natal chart. With Vesta here, your emotional energy becomes highly self-contained. Vesta represents the archetype of being whole unto oneself, meaning that during this cycle, you will find comfort and renewal through sacred isolation rather than external socialization. You may find yourself turning down social invitations or craving long weekends with no plans just to be alone in your space. This is not a depressive withdrawal, but a necessary psychic incubation period. You are replenishing your inner reserves. The challenge of this transit is establishing firm boundaries with those you live with. If you share a home with a partner, family, or roommates, you will need to explicitly communicate your need for privacy. Without clear boundaries, you may become irritable, hypervigilant, or feel like a domestic martyr, sacrificing your peace to cater to everyone else's emotional needs. Ancestral healing and burning away family karma. Because the fourth house represents our lineage, childhood conditioning, and psychological foundations, Vesta acts as a cauterizing flame in this sector. This transit often shines a light on inherited family baggage, toxic generational patterns, or childhood wounds that are ripe for purification. During this time, you may find yourself reflecting deeply on your upbringing or dealing with family matters that require absolute integrity and focus. Vesta asks you to look objectively at what you inherited from your family, both psychologically and behaviorally, and consciously choose what to keep and what to burn away. It is an exceptional period for deep therapy, inner child work, or genealogy. You are essentially acting as the spiritual filter for your lineage, breaking cycles of dysfunction so they are not passed down to future generations. The shadow side, rigidity and domestic isolation. The shadow expression of Vesta transiting the fourth house involves taking the urge for domestic purity to an extreme. You must guard against becoming hyper-controlling of your environment or the people within it. Signs that the Vesta transit is expressing itself through its shadow include becoming obsessive-compulsive about cleanliness or order in the home, enforcing rigid, unforgiving rules on family members or housemates in the name of your own peace, using your home as a fortress to completely hide from the world, slipping into unhealthy agoraphobia or emotional alienation. Remember that Vesta's flame should warm the home, not burn it down. Structure and boundaries are necessary, but they should serve to create safety, not emotional coldness. Summary of the transit. When Vesta journeys through your fourth house, the universe is granting you permission to go off the grid socially and professionally to tend to your roots. By dedicating yourself to the purification of your physical space, honoring your need for quiet solitude, and doing the internal work to heal ancestral patterns, you build an unshakable emotional foundation. When Vesta eventually leaves this house, you will step back into the world with a deeply anchored sense of self, carrying your sanctuary safely within you. Subscribe, like, and share.